Sports Stadium, 5 in intensive care unit, and 12 critically injured in Accra when they went to the Elwak Sports Stadium for the recruitment into the Ghana Armed Forces. Before we discuss anything budget, Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, we need to talk about this briefly. 6 Ghanaians losing their lives, 5 in intensive care unit, 12 critically injured just in Accra alone.
And I understand in Kumasi about 5 other persons were also injured. I think first I will reiterate the messages of condolence to the families of the 6 young ladies who perished here at Elwak yesterday, and to the many who are injured in Accra and Kumasi. Our prayers are with them. I think that those of us in leadership, past and present, should bow our heads in shame, because this is a blot, or it should be a blot on our conscience. I think that the military should also bow its head in shame. The military is the most, I dare say, one of the most professional organizations, most disciplined, most organized, and to have on their watch a number of exercises across the country go this south. So it's not just in Accra, it's in Kumasi. In fact, in other places, you see videos of scuffles that may not have degenerated into injuries, etc. I think it also leaves a bit more to be desired of the military, and they also must have some very honest questions to ask themselves about what sort of intel they had picked up and how they had structured all of this, knowing the unemployment challenge, etc. But for the broader leadership of this country, I think that for all the years we have had, for all the resources that this country has, this is evidence of the fact that we've not been able to deliver an economy that meets the aspirations of many young people. That's why you have tens of thousands of them queuing up like that. And I think that it should be a moment of a lot more serious introspection and a moment of reform. Sometimes when these things come up, we just use it for partisan commentary. And then, there's a state funeral and some money is donated to the families, and then we move on. But I think that this should call for some very serious reform. For example, about the recruitment into the security services, but even the broader question of creating opportunities for young people in this country. And I think if we pay a lot more attention to that, then we can draw a line in the sand.
Great, thank you very much. We also have Joseph Oppong and John Iwa joining us via phone. Joseph Oppong is the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Associations, and John Iwa is CEO of Ghana Association of Banks. They would all comment on this briefly. Let me start off with you, John Iwa, for your take on yesterday's tragedy.
Thank you very much, Winston and your team. It's a very sad reality, and first, our sympathies go to the families who have lost loved ones, and our prayers to those who are in hospital recovering. But the sad reality is this should never have happened in the first place, and it goes to point to the kind of structural inefficiencies we have within our service delivery in this country. But the broader discussion, which unfortunately such a sad event rather bringing to reality, is the lack of opportunity that as a country we have for our teaming youth. Every year we are churning out tens of thousands of graduates every year. The job market is only able to accommodate just about 2,000 to 5,000 or less. So what becomes of the rest of the graduates who are holding certificates with no jobs to do? And for the managers of our economy, I think they have their work cut out for them. The Honorable Finance Minister, if he did not have any line in the budget statement on quality jobs, creation of quality jobs, then this unfortunate incident is a sad reality, and perhaps a few amendments to the budget statement on what government is going to do to create that avenue for the youth to at least have some decent livelihood. We are having graduates who potentially could have a lifetime of unemployment, and I do not think it is a good reflection on us as a people. And this sad event goes only to amplify how important it says that as a country we fix this, and as Honorable Kojo said, to fix it devoid of the normal partisan rhetoric, and go to the work that goes to resolve some of the challenges bedeviling the country. And one more statement I'll make on this. I remember in the heat of the discussions on Galamsey, one example that the Honorable Minister for Lands and Forestry talked about was the fact that the number of people who are engaged in Galamsey is becoming increasingly difficult for us to take the steps that we need to take now in order to safeguard the environment. So we are using the avenue of lack of opportunities, and now we are unable as a country to do that which is necessary to fix our existential threat. And each day we delay in this opportunity creation, each day the problem worsens. So that number of 3 million the Honorable Minister mentioned, since he said that, perhaps it is now 3.2 million. By the time we enter next year, it's 3.5 million. And it will be increasing at an increasing rate if we do not fix the problem at the ground up, which is creating opportunities and decent jobs for our youth.
Thank you very much, John Ewa. Let's get to Joseph Oppong. Joseph Oppong.
I'm very saddened. And this is very unfortunate for young people like this doing their best to secure jobs, to take care of themselves and their families, to suffer this fate is not a good thing to happen to a nation like Ghana. On behalf of the trading community, I send my deepest condolences to the affected families. And that's, we should ask ourselves, we should reflect sincerely and deeply over this. My brother Kojo was talking about the politicians and all that. All of us, we have to think about how to do things in a modern way, more appropriate way. Is it the best that we could do to scrutinize this youth? Couldn't we have staggered it, the time, and then the people, the number of people on appointment basis and all that? In this information era, for this to happen, in this high-tech era, digital era and all that, we could have done so many things differently, and we should be ashamed of this. This shouldn't happen. It's not fair. And that it should also tell us that we have a long way to go. We have a long way to go in terms of employment creation and all that, we are lagging behind. And this should give us and spur our leadership on to do even more to make sure that we are able to generate the wealth that will create the employment for our people.
Thank you very much, Joseph Oppong. Let's come into the studio now and start our conversations about the 2026 budget. The Member of Parliament for Afuasia Yobe is here with us, Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. So what are you picking up? You've talked about how, all governments in their new governments in their first year would do things as we're seeing. So let's look at what you're gathering. What's going to be in this budget?
I can't speak for the government.
You are gathering. So it's not you speaking for the government.
But I think essentially what we are expecting is what I can speak to.
Please go ahead.
And what we're expecting, I think, will start off from what we saw in the first budget and then the mid-year review. Anytime I have an opportunity to speak on this, I try to reiterate the point that what the finance minister will be presenting is two documents in one. He'll be presenting the economic policy of the government for the year, and then he will back it with a budget. Very often people ignore the economic policy part, but that is actually the policy direction, and then he will back it with the budget. So you want to compare it to first the manifesto of the NDC, second the budget and economic policy delivered last year, and then it can guide you into what expectations. In the economic policy and budget that they put out last year, like I mentioned earlier, the first objective was to deepen stability, because the exercise to restore macro stability had started. And in fact, if you read the annual revenue report that the finance minister has presented to Parliament, and then the annual budget performance report that he has presented, he concedes in it that the exercise of stability had started. So the thrust of the economic policy was to restore or to deepen stability, and then to start some of their programs. So that was the bulk of what they wanted to do, to deepen the stability and to start some of their programs. They backed it with a particular fiscal program. By fiscal program, I mean a program to raise and spend. And you also want to look at whether or not that fiscal program had the capability to deliver on the economic policy that they had advertised. So if you look at the fiscal program that first of all, in terms of the economic policy direction, solid. This is what you would do in the first year of your administration, as I recounted from Yaosafo Mafo Kwabena Dufour. It was Mr. Tekwe who had a slightly different scenario because he was in the second term of an already existing government, and then Ken Ofori-Atta even in the first year. So the economic policy direction, solid. Now look at the fiscal. The government rolled out a fiscal program that sought to tweak some of the revenue handles. In essence, they removed 2 revenue handles. They had advertised that they would remove about 3. They removed 2. Publicly, they mentioned that they were abolishing 6, but 4 of those 6, they were not taxes that were being implemented. So they were yielding 0, like what they call the emissions levy and all of those ones. They were 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Only 2, I think that was betting and then e-levy, were the ones that were actually being collected. Now, once they did that, you should have an expectation that they were going to have revenue shortfalls. I recall some of your conversations I listened to here, where the economists had projected that they were going to have about a 6 billion CD revenue shortfall. And you remember the finance minister said that they will reduce VAT retention rate from 6% to 4% to close that gap. We even had one of the professors who at the time was posing to be a neutral, went on social media, clapping that this is smart economic strategy. I'm sure everybody recalls all of these.
Please go ahead.
The fact is that when the outturns came out in the middle of the year, then you will find out whether the revenue strategy worked or not. And I'll show you why that is important. So they removed 2, though they said 6, they removed 2 taxes, and then they introduced 8 new taxes. They used English language to cover some of the new taxes. So if you don't pay attention, you won't realize it. For example, when they say they are extending the sunset clause on a tax, that's a new tax that they have introduced. Because there's a tax that is introduced that is supposed to sunset in a particular year. Then they use the English that they are extending the sunset clause. What it means is that they have reimposed it for a new period. I could go through there about 8 new taxes that they introduced in that budget. But the big thing is that after all of that, the revenue strategy fell short of about 14 billion Ghana cedis as at mid-year. Why is that important? Nemo dat non cord habet. You can't spend what you don't have. So if you put out a revenue strategy that doesn't generate all the revenues that you are looking for, sometimes because you want to look good in the eyes of the public, you will be short in terms of money to spend. So you'll find that on the expenditure side, as at mid-year, they had to cut expenditure by about 19 billion Ghana cedis. So a lot of the promises then they had made, they could not fund it. We are waiting to see the numbers, the provisional numbers by the end of the year. But just to end on the fiscal, so you'll find out that the fiscal strategy did not deliver the results. They have a way of covering it by saying, oh, fiscal discipline. But you and I know that fiscal discipline is not when you fail to meet your revenue targets and therefore fail to spend. Fiscal discipline is when you have a prudent fiscal program, you raise, you spend, and you keep within that prudent program. That's discipline. So first of all, economic policy, I think they were solid. This is what you do in your first year. But the fiscals to back it, because they misconceptualized it, that's why they were having the difficulties. And people say the government is not spending. And the government says, oh, we are spending in the right areas. Why are you spending? They say, oh, this Assembly's common fund is gone. NHIL is gone. The monies that are supposed to go, but those are statutory funds. So that's not what people are actually talking about. We're talking about funding your flagship programs, which will deal with the systemic problems. One of your colleagues who just spoke said, the problem is that the systemic issues are not being dealt with. And that one, I would say that both the MPP and the NDC, we are guilty. The systemic issues, often we don't deal with it comprehensively enough. We tinker at the margins, we do the partisan brushes over it. And that is what they have had in the first year. So we will be looking to the second year fiscal strategy to see if it is better structured to deliver on the economic policy. And there you want to see the revenue measures they are bringing and how efficient those measures will be so that I can yield the revenues and then they can spend. I've seen people saying that no new taxes in the 2026 budget. Don't believe it.
Are there new taxes?
There are 2 new taxes which the government has already passed to start from 2026. The Growth and Sustainability Levy has been introduced from 2026 to 2028. The way they covered it was that they said that they were extending the sunset clause on the Growth and Sustainability Levy from 2026 to 2028. So those new taxes, they've been passed, awaiting a kickoff in 2026. The other one is the Special Import Levy. So when you import things at the port, there's a Special Import Levy that has been imposed. 2026, 2027, 2028. It's been passed already by Parliament. It will start from 2026. So those are 2 new taxes. In fact, it was the Special Import Levy that when they finally brought it to the floor, the Honorable Adongo said they wanted to amend and change it into perpetuity. And we had to then say no. Your policy was that you do 2026 to 2028. So 2 new taxes that are kicking off in this area. But they still have a revenue challenge to try and meet. And if they're able to mobilize those revenues, that is when they can then spend within a prudential framework to meet the promises that they have made. Those are, for example, the expectations we have on the fiscal side.
These taxes where they've been extended, that you'd say, well, once you've extended it, they're supposed to have ended. So once you extend it, it's more like the introduction of a new tax.
It is.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
We'll get into that. But let me bring in John Ewa at this point. John, tell me, what are your own expectations?
Yeah, one thing that is clear, which is an experience we've all gone through in 2025, is the level of discipline around government expenditure. And it is one key 3-page point that successive governments have recorded, which always send us into the ditch. So to the extent that we've had that level of discipline, there's a level of consolidation, fiscal consolidation, and Kojo talks about you can't spend what you don't have. I mean, that is what happens to us as individuals. And we make up the countries from the individual to the household to the economy. So if you don't have it, you can't spend it. Yes, we all want the government to improve revenue mobilization, but in the event that revenue is not forthcoming, you cannot spend that which you do not have. But hitherto, what we have seen is even when we don't have, we have avenues for catching up so that we can do that which we wanted to do. So we want the minister to stay the course, because stability is the name of the game. Consolidate the stability, make it well grounded. It is only when we have been able to achieve that we can begin tackling the structural deficiencies. How do we pump ammunition into the industry? Because as we speak, Ghana's GDP composition is not reflective of the country called Ghana. We are a developing country, but we have a GDP makeup of Germany and UK and these advanced worlds. Ghana's GDP makeup should never be service leading the pack. It should either be agric or industry leading the pack. That is where the jobs are. The service sector is a derivative. If industry is doing well, nobody will say hotels should spring up. If industry is doing very well, and all the other technology and banking services, financial services will definitely come along. But we have leapfrogged and we jump from agrarian economy all the way to service sector, which must be corrected. But you can only correct that when you are well grounded in terms of stability, and you have a program that tweaks how the structure of the economy is organized. I would expect the finance minister to talk about consolidating the gains and also begin tackling the big elephant in the room, quality jobs, and maybe in a moderate growth environment, because you cannot always, just because you have stability, all of a sudden you are growing at 10%. No, that will definitely reverse some of the gains that we have had. Consolidate the gains, but begin tackling the structural inefficiencies we have within the country. And most of the foreign reserves that we are, kind of happy about now, greater percentage of it is as a result of favorable commodity pricing.
Gold.
So, in the midst of good commodity pricing, which is a scenario as a country we do not have control over, what if there is a reverse in 2026? So, we need to begin looking at the difficult question of how do we sustain the build-up of our foreign reserves to better manage the economy, better manage our currency. So, within this ambit, I want the minister really to drill down, let the country know exactly what they are doing to propel industry. We've just seen in the last couple of days how a good harvest is now bringing a problem to the country. We have glut and farmers are losing money. If farmers are losing money, if you are a bank and you provided funding, you are losing money. The farmer has done nothing wrong. But because we have not tackled the underlying problem within the agri value chain, when there is good harvest, then there is a problem. When there is bad harvest, then there's a problem. So when do we as a country gain? So we have to begin doing the heavy lifting of correcting those structural imbalances, inefficiencies, making sure that we have a good warehousing receipt system, buffer stocking system, we have a good commodity exchange system. And yesterday on a platform, somebody said, and all government agencies, most of these items that we are experiencing the glut on are staple items, which perishes, within few days. But we have government agencies that some of whom are even importing produce. Why don't we have a structure in place that properly ring-fence the agri output to feed government infrastructure and also integrated well into the commodity exchange system, where the banking system would then plug in using the warehousing receipt regime to provide further funding to the farmers? What we have, if we don't solve it, the problem is the farmers who are having the glut now, next year they will not go to the farm, and then we are going to have shortage, and then inflation will take up. So it will be a cyclical effect of a problem for which we know the solution, except that we are failing as a country to tackle the solution from the ground up. We need to do the heavy lifting of changing the structural deficiency, and which is trying to not tackle agri as a standalone, agri to agribusiness, to wholesaling, buffer stocking to the market, and the cycle goes back to agri, cash goes, and then it's in a cycle where banks can plug in properly to fund this cycle, make it easy for farmers and make it easy for lenders. As it is now, it's very difficult for banks to just step in and say we are giving money to agri. Like now, there are banks that are crying. So we want the minister to tackle. I'm very interested in what he's going to say, particularly as we know that government programs have not really kick-started, and there is going to be some level of focus in integrating government programs into the 2026 budget. I really want to understand how the minister will balance that vis-a-vis the debt obligations that we have to service. Most of the debt exchange obligations were not front-loaded. We were packed into the back. A big chunk, 21 billion or thereabout, is due in cities on the local debt exchange 2026, and about $1.4 billion also due in 2026. So we already have fiscal challenges in terms of debt service obligation. And I'm interested in knowing how the minister combines this obligation, because we cannot fail. We definitely have to meet those commitments vis-a-vis stability and also to begin working on growth.
Okay. Before I get to Joseph Oppong, when you say government programs have not kick-started yet, what do you mean? Which programs are you saying they've not started?
The government has two huge programs that we all know about. We have the Big Push, which to all intents and purposes, there was no proper allocation in the 2025 budget for.
There was an allocation of 13 billion in
2026. We have the 24-hour economy, and these are capital-intensive projects with huge commitments. Potentially, if we want to fund those commitments with borrowing, with huge potential debt accumulation. And what we have been able to achieve now, creating the fiscal space that we have recorded in 2025 to GDP is at levels that we are anticipating will be hitting around 2030. Once these programs are front-loaded and not really phased in a manner that does not overburden the fiscal space, then we are going to have a challenge of government is doing a lot of stuff. The roads are being built, but inflation has started taking up again. The currency is also struggling. So that is what I meant when I said government programs.
Okay, let me bring in Joseph, president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association. From a Guta point of view, what are you expecting from the finance minister?
Okay, so we have stability of the local currency, which is working in our favor. But you see, unless it is sustained for a reasonable period of time, you are not going to yield the needed results. And so we seek that the finance minister adopt measures to sustain the stability that we are having now, the gains that we are having. And also, you see now the indicators are getting better. Inflation is quite low, and then the forest rates are also low. That what we expect is that the interest rate should commensurate with the low inflation that we are experiencing. I think it needs to commensurate with each other. And we want the finance minister to bring measures that will translate these gains into economic growth, which will be led by the private sector. It's very important that we look at this by rationalizing the tax system, reducing the cost of doing business, utility charges that we are experiencing now. Then also give us access to affordable credit, so that affordable and patient credit, where businesses can now translate it for growth for the benefit of the country. Because we have to generate wealth at this point. If the indicators are very good, and yet if people should still say that we have problems in our businesses, then it does not occur well for the government. So let's take advantage of this stability and ensure that businesses are growing. You know that the growth that we are having in this country is tilted towards the extractive industry and the service industry. Let's dissect it and see how we'll be able to generate growth in the manufacturing sector, agriculture sector, and all that. And that will make proper meaning to create the employment that we so seek as a nation. We are also waiting for the VAT reforms that have been promised by the finance minister. We want the VAT structure to be simplified and then affordable. And we believe that the finance minister will adhere to that. Fortunately, we have the modified tax system that have been introduced by GRE and the finance ministry itself. And I know that they are going to also input it in the budget, which is also very good for the very small and informal sector of the economy. So these are the things.
Now, when you say you want an affordable VAT rate, what would constitute an affordable VAT rate for you?
Yes. Once they want to take away the flat rate and then adopt the standard rate, then of course 15% will be manageable, so that the cascading effect that always results from the tax payment wouldn't be too much. Because if it goes anything beyond 18, 19, 20, then of course the same effect will be felt. It's not going to translate in cheaper prices. You know, we are doing business in competition with other neighboring countries and all that. And if the VAT is very high, it's not going to serve that cause. It's not going to help the quest to industrialize the country through the 24-hour economy and all that. So anything that we have to do to rationalize the tax system, make it affordable, simplified, so that it will be able to boost the local industries to be very competitive, then of course we are on the threshold to recover the economy as we all seek.
So currently, levies of 2.5, then a calculation of 15% VAT on it. You say you want it simplified. So street calculation 20%, 2.5, 2.5, 15. Is that what you want?
Yeah, if because it should be affordable. Now it is simplified, and if you simplify it to 20%, then of course you simplify it, but the rate is not affordable. But if you make it in a manner that if everybody is paying, and then to bring compliance. You see, compliance. The key to compliance is the affordability and simplicity of these taxes that we're talking about. That's all it requires. But if it becomes more, because the challenge now that is going to be for us, the trading community, is that we brought the threshold of 500,000 for some group of traders who turnover is up to 500,000 to be left out of the VAT, and then those who are above 500,000 are going to pay the VAT. So if you have this situation and they are all in the same market, and one is not paying the VAT, and then the other is paying 20%, then of course it's not going to help compliance because those who are registered for the VAT collection is going to be victims and penalized, and that's what I'm talking about. So it then becomes a challenge there. Even though the modified tax system is a very good one, how are we going to identify those who belong to that threshold? How are we going to avoid the confusion in the market, especially when we are all operating the same marketplace? That is what's going to be a challenge for us to contend with.
Let me bring in Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah, because before we went for the break, before we went to, we were talking about new taxes. So let's get a clarification. Let's say the growth and sustainability levy.
Yeah.
It was supposed to have ended in 2025.
Yeah.
Somewhere in April, I think, the minister comes for an amendment and says the sunset now is what, 2028.
He's extending it from 2026 to 2028.
28. And you say because of that, it's a new tax. How?
Okay, so let me quickly deal with that, and then let me deal with, I think, the issues that Ms. Ewa has raised about what they want to see in the economic policy to deal with the structural issues, and then what the traders have spoken about. So Ghana operates what we call a medium-term expenditure framework. We don't budget for 1 year.
Sure.
When you read Article 36(5) of the Constitution, it says that when you win power, we have to convert your ideas into a 4-year governance program. When that is done, then the NDPC first, and then later the Finance Ministry, they cost it. So they convert it into what we call the MTEF.
Yeah.
So this medium-term expenditure framework is made up of revenue measures. How are you going to get the money to fund the ideas? Financing measures. What is your borrowing plan, your annual borrowing plan times 4? And what are your expenditure measures? That's what comes into the MTEF. So sometimes there are taxes that we introduce for medium term. They are permanent revenue measures. Income tax, even VAT. These are permanent revenue measures. Because you know that for the next 30, 40 years, we will need income tax to fund what we are doing. We need royalties. So these are permanent revenue measures. Sometimes you bring what we call medium-term revenue measures. So you can bring one that says that this particular tax, we need it for 3 years. Because maybe we have this gap in the fiscals that we have to close over 3 years. So those are not permanent taxes. When a tax is introduced with a medium-term focus, there's a sunset clause on it. And it's not expected to be extended. So when a government inherits a tax that says that this is a medium-term measure, it is supposed to die by 2025 December. It's a medium-term measure. When that government wants to be honest with you, it should tell you that we want to, maybe in the medium term, bring this tax back or keep this tax. Candor is important. It goes to the root of budget credibility and fiscal credibility. So don't tell us that I haven't introduced a new tax. when indeed what you have done is that you have picked a particular medium-term revenue measure that had died, and you've reintroduced it for another medium term. Be honest with it. And I'm telling you that there are two of them that have been introduced. And the way
one
they
is
did
the
it,
growth and sustainability,
yes, and then the
is,
other one is a special import levy.
okay.
And Parliament has passed both. So it will start from January 2026. If you don't know, you may think that there are no new taxes, but there are two of them. Let me deal with the substantive issue that Mr. Uwa raised about the economic policy direction. And he is suggesting, and I agree with him, that the systemic and structural issues with the Ghanaian economy that you want to see tackled are the ones that he's now expecting to see that the government will fund. Remember, I said that I want to see, or we want to see, the economic policy direction set in this second year of their 4 years. And he has alluded to the fact that what they as industry people want to see, that policy direction is first about consolidating the gains, and then secondly, now tackling the systemic issues. So what is the government's answer to tackling the systemic issues? We had a debate about this during the manifesto periods of 2024. For example, industry. Listen to Mr. Uwa. Mr. Uwa says to you that he thinks that the structure of our economy is twisted. By now, we should be heavy on industry or maybe even agro-processing, not jump to services. Because if jobs is a problem for you, services won't answer for you. You need to do a lot more in the area of industry and agro-processing. You see those numbers across the country yesterday, that is a signal that you still have a jobs problem you have to deal with. So what is the government's answer? The government's answer is the 24-hour economy. We litigated this during the campaign. They said that they had an answer called the 24-hour economy, which was going to ensure industrial expansion. 1 job, 3 people, 3 shifts. They have launched it. In 2025, there was no fiscal allocation for it. So in 2026, you want to examine the economic thinking behind this 24-hour economy and the money they have put behind it. We have been asking them to bring the paper or the program document to Parliament. Till today, it hasn't come before Parliament. I don't know how many CSOs or academics, etc., who have been able to interrogate it, that this program really answers the economic policy question of expanding industry and creating jobs. I get my drift. Then we will come and examine how much money have you allocated to it. So the analysis that Mr. Uwa is making, it's drawing attention to the fact that one of the things we should be looking for in this budget is, are you going to flesh out the 24-hour economy program in any way? Are you going to make some money available for the commencement of the growth poles within the 24-hour economy? If not, then do not expect that something significant will happen in industry. Talk about the traders. They are saying that they want to see sustained FX stability. They want interest rates to begin to translate into better lending rates and credit to the private sector. Last night, I was running some numbers with my team. If you compare the monetary policy rate to the Ghana reference rate and the average lending rate, you are not seeing that the reduction in the monetary policy rate is sinking in time with a similar reduction in the average lending rate. Sometimes it's lagged, sometimes it's not even happening. Additionally, you are not seeing a significant increase in credit to the private sector. So if somebody is watching interest rates as a clue to see how the private sector will expand, Dr. Oppong just mentioned it, credit to the private sector, you have to begin to see it translate, else then nothing is going to happen there. Take FX, he's talking about sustainability. Today I hear a lot of people saying, oh, the CD has appreciated by 30%. That is a matter of fact. Why? Because the government is doing significant market intermediation. Remember, and I have some data here, remember at the beginning of the year when we spotted it, we drew the attention of the governor and the government and the whole country that you are doing market intermediation. At that time, 30th of April, check My Joy online. You can let your producers print us a copy. The governor said that the Bank of Ghana is not injecting significant amount of dollars to sustain the city's ability. I'm sure everybody recalls this. Mm-hmm. But we said you are doing market intermediation. On the 23rd of May, when the bishops visited His Excellency the President and raised it, the President said, no, it's not true. It's effective leadership. You'll find it 23rd of May 2025. He said it's effective leadership. We kept insisting that you are doing market intermediation. On the 10th of September, when the IMF had then instructed the Bank of Ghana to stop it unless they put in place a framework, the president then announced that yes, they were doing market intermediation, but the Bank of Ghana had now stopped, and that's why the depreciation had resumed. The structural issues had not changed. It was the intermediation. On the 3rd of November, again, check my Joy Online, the Bank of Ghana now, on the instructions of the IMF, published ahead of time that they were going to intermediate with $1.1 billion. The structure hasn't changed. It's the dumping, the pumping of dollars into the economy. On, I think, the 4th of October, if my dates are right, they announced the second month. You know why? Because now the Bank of Ghana has been instructed by the IMF that every month they should announce ahead of time. And I'll show you why. So on the 4th or 5th of October, they announced again they were going to do another 1.15. From the beginning of the year till now, our calculation is that the Bank of Ghana has pumped about 8 billion, nothing short of 8 billion, to suppress the normal market rate. That's why you have a 10 to the CD now. And the traders are happy, like he has said, it's good, but they're asking for sustainability. Remember, in Parliament, we have been asking over and over again, I've been making that point over and over again, that, first of all, Kanda, be honest that what you are doing is that you are pumping. We pumped from, I think, about September to December. If you recall, Governor Addison said we can bring the rate to 10. But the sustainability is the question. How are you able to pump? And let me give you a clue. In the Mahama 1 administration, they were not able to pump. So there was significant depreciation. When we were hit by crisis, the balance of payment crisis, we couldn't pump. Remember the first statement I issued as information minister, we were going to the IMF for balance of payment support. We couldn't pump because we didn't have dollars. Not that the economy had changed. The structure of the economy hadn't changed. We just didn't have dollars. Yaosafo Mafu pumped in the first year. He achieved a bit of stability. Maybe not appreciation, but stability. Kwabena Dufo pumped. He achieved stability, maybe not appreciation. Ken Ofori-Atta pumped. Well, not them, the Bank of Ghana under them pumped. That was when Dr. Bawumia said we have arrested the dollar. The dollar, and we've put it in handcuffs. I'm a student of economic history. Is the market intermediation. But why is it that this time we are able to pump so much that the currency appreciates? I'm coming to answer the sustainability question that my colleague is asking. Let me show you something. The Bank of Ghana, yesterday, many people may have missed it. The Bank of Ghana issued a statement yesterday and admitted what they are doing and now purported to put out a framework. I'll read you paragraph 2. I don't know if your business team caught it.
Sure, go ahead.
It says, under the new framework, so the Bank of Ghana then announced the framework. Remember, we've been asking in Parliament over and over again, bring the framework, bring the framework, bring the framework. So now they've announced the framework. They say under the new framework, BOG's FX operations will pursue 3 key objectives. First, they will support reserve accumulation to provide a buffer against external vulnerabilities. Second, they will act to dampen excessive short-term volatility in the foreign exchange market, responding to disorderly conditions without undermining the FX rate. Third, BOG will intermediate FX flows in a market-neutral manner using flows from sources such as the gold purchase program. And then they go on, they say, and other surrender requirements. Now let me show you something. The gold purchase program started in June 2021. It was the first time, at that time, our total gold reserves were about 8 tons. That was when, under the leadership of Dr. Bawumia, a proposal was made that we should start buying gold with cedis. And when we add the gold to our forex reserves, it is part of the reserve buildup. And eventually you can even trade those when the prices are high and then earn forex. When you earn that forex, a government may choose to pump. So the gold purchase program was introduced June 17, 2021. I want to read you a little quote of the governor at the time. It's in the 14th paragraph of the speech that day. I hope I'm not taking too much of your time.
Right after that,
I will wrap up very quickly. He says, ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, let me acknowledge the support of His Excellency the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who got this program started. I would also want to acknowledge the collaborative roles played by other key stakeholders, including the Ghana Minerals Commission, the PMMC. What's the new name of the PMMC?
Gold Board.
Gold Board. Today you hear people say, oh, it's a gold board. I'm showing you the clue. This is where it is. The PMMC, the Ghana Chamber of Mines, etc. So in 2021, we introduced the gold purchase program, which now allows Ghana, in fact, by the time we were leaving power in 2024, gold reserves had accumulated from 8 tons to 30 tons, 21 tons addition. It is because of that now you have a lot of gold. You can, like they say in local parlance, you can melt a bit of it, get Forex. And what the Bank of Ghana is now doing is what they are pumping. Now, is that strategy sustainable? I'm answering his question. Today, gold prices are averaging, I listened to your business news this morning. Gold prices are averaging about $4,000 an ounce. Extraordinary because of the global uncertainties. At the time we introduced this program, gold price was about $1,700. You won't make this windfall. Today, there's a lot of windfall. But there are no rules and they are pumping. That is why you are seeing an appreciation. So when my brother asks about stability, what he and all other traders and all of us are asking for is that what is the stability framework, or sorry, sustainability? What is the sustainability framework that you are putting around it? Just one last point. The other thing the traders are asking for is liquidity. Liquidity. He's saying that there should be liquidity so that they can, do their trading. The Bank of Ghana has sterilized about 60 billion Ghana cedis as at August. Had sterilized, they had mopped up about 60 billion Ghana cedis and packed it at the central bank. By the way, the cost of sterilization is not zero. The paper that they are selling, it's a cost to the Bank of Ghana. And it is affecting liquidity in the Ghanaian economy. Will they continue? Will they change it? So those are the things that they are asking for. I'm just breaking it down for a deeper understanding. Those are the things they are asking for. That as part of the economic policy that the finance minister will read on behalf of the president, people are expecting answers to. Some of these are not sustainable. And so you are looking for the sustainable ones that change the structure of the Ghanaian economy.
Stay with me, Honorable Kojo Oppong, Member of Parliament of First Year. We also have been joined on the phone by John Ewa, who's CEO of the Ghana Association of Banks, and Joseph Oppong, President of GUTA. Back to the conversation, and I get back to you, John Ewa, CEO of the Ghana Association of Banks. I know you'd have to leave, so let me just wrap it up with you before you go. Now, you talked about, the need to look at the structure of the Ghanaian economy. Kojo Oppong has been expanding on that. I'd like to hear from you what else you believe should be done in actually changing the structure so we don't do the same things we're doing. And all the time we've talked about the need to look at the structure of the Ghanaian economy. What should we do differently now, John Ewa? Okay, I think we've lost John Ewa. Okay, we'll try and get back to John Ewa. Do we have Joseph Oppong with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Good. Yes. So, let me just wrap it up with you. You've listened to Honorable Kojo Oppong Nkrumah. You've talked about the fact that you need, access to credit. You believe that, even though we're talking about, low interest rates, it's not really extending to the credits that you have access to. What do you want to see being done on that particular issue by the finance minister? Okay,
so before I get to that, I want to respond to some few issues raised by Mr. Oppong. With regards to the taxes with sunset clauses, we have come to believe that they are taxes in perpetuity. Mr. Oppong will recall that we have the special import levy that they came to inherit from the previous administration. The sunset clause was for 2 years, and it has been there. We insisted and protested that they take it off the table because the sunset clause has expired, and it became a tax in perpetuity. So we that's what we've come to accept, that these taxes, when they name it with the clauses and all that, nothing is actually done, and it goes on integrity, on our own integrity as a various government and all that. And so that's it for them. And then when we come to the monetary policy that is being adopted by the governor of Bank of Ghana, I believe he's doing a very good job by these injections that he's doing. Is correct, because if you generate the wealth, if we shore up our foreign reserves and all that, and it is within our means to inject some to save the economy. Because what it does is that when they do the injection, it helps contain the speculation, negative speculation around the dollar, especially when it's going up and all that. So they do that prudently to stabilize and then stabilize the currency, which is in good taste. If Governor Addison had done it the way you were saying that it could have come 10%, we wouldn't have lost so much capital in 2022, 2023. So I don't see anything wrong when we have it. That's the reason why we generate wealth. That's why we always say that let's grow the economy. If you grow the economy and we have foreign reserves, and then we fall on it and then infuse it into the system to stabilize the economy for businesses to grow, there's absolutely nothing wrong about that. So all that we have to do is to generate the wealth so that we can always have it and then stabilize our economy. And they are doing it perfectly. And so this need not to be criticized so much. And so, and the credit that I'm talking about, you see, especially our women food is very difficult for them because most of them do not even deal through the mainstream banks. They go to the microfinance and all that. And then the rates are very expensive. So most of them are wallowing in debt because of the interest that is piling on them. That's why when the president said that they are going to bring the Women's Bank and all that, we all hailed it. And so it's about time. If it will manifest in this budget, we'll be very happy so that it will safeguard the interest of our women food, especially, and not only the women, because some men are also as weak as the women, depending on your capital base. So it can help all of us, especially at this time that we want to enhance on the 24-hour economy that by way of industrialization and all that. Most of us will want to migrate from trading into manufacturing. And some of them have submitted their business plans and all that in this respect, but they will also want to access a credit, a patient credit, and then affordable credit that will help us migrate into these manufacturing areas. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very, very much, Joseph Oppong, who is president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association. Thank you for making time to speak to us this morning, which means we can wrap it up with John Ewa. I'm told he's back on the line. John Ewa, if you can hear me. Okay, no, I think he's not back. So let me get into studio with you. Now, you've talked about, all these interventions by the Bank of Ghana. But some would say, well, that should not be a problem, should it? After all, what you would expect is that there's some stability and possible appreciation of your currency, so long as it helps and brings relief to your people, isn't it?
I've mentioned to you, or in my submission so far, if you bear me out, I've not said it is a problem. Mm-hmm. What I've said is that let's be honest about what is going on. And I gave you instances in our history during the Osafo Mafo's tenure, during Kwabena Dufour's tenure, during, may I say, maybe Mr. Tekwe's tenure to some extent, during Kenufo-Adda's tenure, where the central bank was doing the same thing. The question about stability is important because the market intermediation itself is not a sustainable route. We all do it, but it's not a sustainable route. Today, we're able to do it because gold prices are about $4,000 an ounce because of what's happening on the global stage. What happens when gold prices are no longer at $4,000 an ounce? Will this be sustainable? So there are sustainable issues that are at the core of the structure of our economy. I'm suggesting that we use this as an opportunity. It's good, and it helps us to buy time to tackle the sustainable issues.
What are those sustainable issues?
For example, and consistently in Parliament we've raised this, the governor agrees with us. Is the implementation that's the question. For example, we are now in an era where our balance of trade has turned positive. Prior to the NPP coming to power, you recall that our balance of trade was negative. We started recording positive balance of trade, I think from about 2018. The problem is that the balance of payment does not necessarily correspond with the balance of trade.
Sure.
So not all the exports are yielding forex that is accruable to the Ghanaian economy. And number two, the part of the forex that is accruable to the Ghanaian economy, which is our actual supply of dollars, not all of it is even coming back. The surrender of forex proceeds, not all of it is coming back. And number three, where it is coming back, it is believed that a lot of the banks are still holding it in their nostro accounts abroad and are not either using it for funding the new volumes of imports or surrendering it. And then number four, you have unbridled speculative demand on the Ghanaian market. These are the structural issues. Do you want to deal with them, or do you want to tinker at the margins and say, today gold prices are $4,000 an ounce, so I'm pumping and everybody should clap for me? I've told you, we have done it before. You can choose to ignore us and continue. When gold prices are no longer at $4,000 an ounce, you will see that what we are saying is true. Fitch Solutions, one of their subsidiaries, BMI, is forecasting that commodity prices will be where they are between 2025 and 2026. So you can do it in this period. But what if we are no longer at that point? So you have to come back and tackle these structural issues. Ensure that the balance of trade sort of aligns with the balance of payment. Ensure that for those who are accruing forex, they don't hold it in their nostrils, they bring it back home. Listen, for example, right now, digital currencies are being used to avoid a lot of payment through the normal banking system. How are you going to, for example, bring an act into place that regulates the digital assets ecosystem and ensures that people don't bypass all of these ones? These are the suggestions we are making, that you got to look at these things and develop the structural permanent solution so that the normal demand and supply of currency on the market will contain the situation. Then you don't have to do a lot of pumping.
You know, you admit that this pumping thing is historical. Everybody has done it. You also say that it's not sustainable. But is it fair to say that perhaps the current government has done it to better success than their predecessors? I've been bearing in mind this time last year, the dollar was about 17 cedis.
They have pumped more. That's why I was telling you that from the beginning of the year till now, they have done nothing less than 8 billion. Last night I was looking at Ghana's import bill. Our import bill January to October currently is about 14 billion. This time last year it was about 12 billion. If out of 14 billion they have done, you even reduce my 8 billion, bring it to 7. That's about 50% of our import bill. So it shows you the volume that they have pumped. And I'm saying that they're able to pump. I've showed you where they have pumped it from. There's nothing wrong with that. But then you ask yourself the question, so what are the risks going forward and how do you contain those risks? If you are in a scenario where the state cannot earn this about extra 7 billion in forex to pump, what will be the real situation on the Ghanaian currency? And so use this as an opportunity to buy time and fix the structural issues. Else, when these tailwinds are no longer on our side, we will be back to 2008. We will be back to 2012. We'll be back to 2016. That's the only caution we are given.
So what do you expect to hear this afternoon that would be a sign to you that the government is tackling the structural issues?
So let me disaggregate it. For example, on the monetary side, particularly on the FX side, you want to hear the rules that they are using. Maybe what we want to say is that 40% of our windfall will go to add to our reserves. So we are no longer looking at the IMF 3 months of import cover. We'll keep building. I was with the Indian governor of the central bank at the annual meetings. They've done more than, I think, 9 months of import cover. And look at their economy. If they do 9 months of import cover, that's huge. Those are the buffers that they have. You want to say maybe the rule is that 40% here, then the other 60% will make maybe half of it available for market intermediation. We will make the other half of it available for. Those are rules. You see how now we are saying not more than 1.5% of GDP as a primary balance on commitment base. You want to put in place rules. In the statement the Bank of Ghana has issued, they hint at rules. There are no rules currently. So on the FX side, you want to see the rules. And then you also want to see some of the structural issues that I've mentioned. On the monetary policy side, currently I'm telling you that if you try to plot the graph between the MPC rate and the Ghana reference rate and the average lending rate, the correlation is suspect. It's not translating quickly and significantly enough. And if you even superimpose on it access to credit of the private sector, it's not growing proportionally. So again, you want to hear some structural interventions that will ensure that more people who want access to loans can get access to loans to do their business. You want to hear that. Let me come to the fiscal side. I've told you that the fiscal strategy was not in itself credible. That's why they've missed revenue targets. As at half year, they had missed by about 14 billion. As at half year. You can look at Appendix 2A of the mid-year review document that they presented. Appendix 2A will show you a 3 billion gap. But remember that despite the claim that there were no buffers we left them 11 billion. And they swept it from all the ministries, departments, and agencies. Add that to that's 14 billion. So the fiscal strategy, after 8 new taxes, removing 2, they were struggling to meet revenue targets. We'll look at the numbers at the end of the year. But this year,
say, if you don't mind,
this year quickly, they have to also now take off the COVID levy. So you want to see a more credible revenue strategy that can you. Remember the finance minister told us that he will remove these taxes and they will move tax to GDP ratio from 13 to 18%, 500 basis points. So you want to see a credible strategy that achieves that. So far, this reducing VAT returns from 6% to 4%, it didn't work. These taxes that they were going to remove and move us from 13 to 15% tax, it didn't work. So you want to see a more credible fiscal strategy on that side so that they don't have to be cutting or hemorrhaging on the expenditure side as much as they are doing now.
They say some of the part of the reason why they didn't hit these mid-year targets is because the city did so well that it affected collections at the ports.
Fair point. Yeah. Fair point. That may be what they say in their defense, but that's why you are responsible for your own economic modeling at the beginning of the year. So what was the rate that you modeled? Is that an admission, therefore, that in their own program, their own estimation, they did not model this level of dumping by the central bank, and that is why it has undercut their revenues? I'm not sure they can sustain that argument. But at the end of the day, what you want is a certain fiscal strategy that delivers the numbers so that you can raise and finance and spend on the things that will structurally transform the Ghanaian economy. So on the monetary side and FX side, I've given you a view. On the fiscal side, I've given you, and then on the broader real sector, you want to see at least an implementation of their own programs. We have said that some of those programs we don't believe it will deliver results, but you at least let them implement it, and that's what everybody's looking. And it starts by bringing the program documents to Parliament. 12 programs so far, not one brought to Parliament.
We're wrapping it up. You say there are some programs that you haven't seen. The documents in Parliament?
I've been on this crusade for a while. Currently, the current government has launched about 12 programs, mostly programs on the economy. There's not been a single one that they've laid the program document before Parliament. And what it does is that it makes it difficult for Parliament or anybody, media, civil society or so, to even the citizens, to exercise oversight. I understand that the president has actually told his ministers at cabinet that they should bring it. So we are waiting for it so that we'll now be in a better position to interrogate whether or not these programs can deliver the transformation that everybody's looking forward to. So you're expecting today and in the 2026 economic policy that they will consolidate and make sustainable the kind of gains that we've made in the medium term. But beyond that, you want to see the programs that would transform and deliver the jobs and the growth that we're looking for. One senior friend of mine on the NDC side has just sent me a message. He says that we as parties must sustain workable policies. So we look forward to those workable policies, but that means we have to get the document. Okay. And then, all of us can coalesce, just like how they've continued some of our policies that are good.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kojo Oppong, former Minister of Works and Housing, former Information Minister, and of course, Member of Parliament for Ofuase Ayerbi.